Hey folks, I'm totally not named Dan, though you can call me that if you want. And I'm back for another deck video, and today's is going to be a little bit of a long one. Let me bring in my buddy to explain why.
Hey there, and yeah, this is gonna be a long one because we're going over a lot of Tiger,
Yep.
but because he's been my pet deck ever since release.
Yeah, or more or less. There was a bit of alternating between him and Magna, who I'll chuck up here. But, well, we've got a few decks to show you, so let's get into it. This is the first. This is your qualifying list. Didn't come first at the event, but it was at least 50 people at a Sheffield event, right?
Yeah, it was huge. It was just not that major an event, but yeah, this deck did a lot better than I thought it would.
Yeah, from
And
what
yeah,
I
it got me to
understand,
nuts.
it was the equivalent of a regionals, but not actually a regionals. The way it often is with Patriot Games in Sheffield, where when they host a major event or a qualifying event or anything like that, they get the turnout of a regionals and all the really hardcore Sheffield players rather than anywhere else where they get maybe 10 people.
Yeah, because I remember when a similar event where we normally play, I think we had two extra people show up for one.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this one on the day being 50 people, I was like, this the kind of event I thought it was, and this did a lot better than I thought it would there.
Yeah, from what I recall, top four qualified. You got sixth, but at least two of the people who qualified there that day had already qualified on previous days, and therefore it trickled down to you. But I mean, out of the number of people there, sixth was still good, especially given the strength of players that turn out to a Sheffield event.
Yeah, and because
Yeah.
it's not doing the normal Tiger stuff that most people have been prepared for Tiger doing at the moment, which was all infinite loop stuff.
I mean, especially at the time, because this is an older deck. This is from the first range of national qualifiers.
Yeah, like if people saw Tiger, 90% of it was doing that, but I wanted to stray away from the norm and try something different with him, and it worked out.
Yeah, but before we get into the details proper, I'm just going to quickly put up a thumbnail for my qualifying list when we talked about that, so you can see another deck from around the same time. Honestly, though, I'd argue this Tiger had more success, not less.
Which is weird because it didn't win the event.
Yeah, Tiger didn't win an event for a very long time, so you will see a big gap in the lists we show you, but we'll get to that. First off, what he does, he's a 533 with Enhance if your attack deals damage, draw a card. Just on every attack, no cost, other than that it has to not have flash. Then Enhance once per turn, switch this attack speed and damage, so both offensively and defensively he can do that. Again, no cost, but it's at least limited a bit, so you gotta choose when to use it. And finally, response twice per enhanced step, so only during the enhanced step. Be clear on that. After an effect modifies the speed of your attack, that attack gets +1 damage.
Yeah, he's got a few effects, but they're all fairly simple to grasp and understand. And it does suck that the response is twice per enhanced step, so you'd never have any reason to play flashes in this deck.
Yeah, Tiger is not a flash character, though he might be able to get away with something like Phantom Threat, that gains flash after he's given it enough bonuses.
Yeah, I think I toyed around with it a little when that card did release, but it was just too much work for that one card to seem worth it to me.
Yeah, that seems fair. I think in general, Phantom Threat is too much work for it to seem worth it. The only character who really uses it effectively is Deku 6, the emo Deku, who we'll be talking about at some point in the future.
Mm.
So, attack-wise, you're starting out with fairly expected stuff. You've got throw, still deals, and you got a few other things. You got for slashing whirlwind here, enhanced discard 2 momentum. That gets +10 damage, only playable if you've dealt damage this combat phase.
Which normally would be an annoying condition to work with, but given 90% of the attacks are throws or pseudo throws,
Well, I wouldn't
it's
say
not really an
90%. It
issue.
looks like just over 50, but it's still enough.
All the attacks you want to play right away, throws, so it's just a great finisher because I always found with him, because you want to give so much speed to make sure things connect and get the response boost, sometimes it was hard to just kill, which slashing whirlwind with that +10 damage worked. Or even if you only needed a little bit more, you could give the +10 damage and then turn that into speed.
Yeah, and then it becomes a 14 speed attack, and who's touching you then? Then we have bullet punches, and you just play the attack more times, get more card draw out of it, and maybe clear your card pool if you've got other punches in there. Your other punch primarily being reverse throw.
Yeah. And bullet punches are just great because it's normally a +1/+1 everything, but because we gain speed for that, we also gain an extra damage on top of that.
Ah, yes, that's during the enhanced step, isn't it? Then there's high engine kick, which, I mean, it's just plus big amount of speed, really. Filters your hand a bit, gets even more speed if you discard an attack. It's a solid card.
Yeah, it was just I needed 2 more attacks. I was playing 4 bullet punches for a time, but with us having a very important 3 diff foundation, I didn't want too many 2 checks, so high engine kick just fit what the deck wanted to do nicely.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, your player body, your Tiger specific foundation. It's not really Tiger specific, it's just designed to work so closely with them.
Yeah.
Very limiting in terms of those 2 checks, very limiting in other regards as well. You're running 4 of it, which I still think is the right thing because you want to see it as much as possible. But if you see
Yeah.
2 on your opening turn, that's really rough because, well, you can only guarantee one of them, even if you don't run the 2.
Yeah. But I mean, it's got an okay block though.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not the worst. And if you're having a slow second turn, if you've got the second one saved in hand, it's never a problem to play down a second
Oh
if you
god,
can.
no, no. If a second one comes down, it's fantastic. It's +2 speed to everything and trigger Tiger both times.
Yeah. So at one, it's just a +1/+1, which you can never go wrong with. And the second enhance got a lot more useful later on with the deck list you'll see.
Yeah, yeah, with
But
this deck list, you do not use that because that's losing your player body.
yeah,
We'll talk
you
about how
would
you can avoid that in the future.
you would use it maybe if with a last ditch effort, like maybe you needed 1 more speed to confirm a kill, you would do it.
Yeah, it's
But
the
other than that,
equivalent
you
of
wouldn't do
speed,
it.
even if it doesn't actually give speed and buff your character. Award the Victor is part of the infinite combo, so again, maybe tricks people into thinking that, but it doesn't actually work with the character as is, because this is a response on the attack dealing damage, whereas the character is a pre-established fired effect on dealing the damage, and fired effects go before responses during the same response window.
It's a little bit of a smoke screen, but sometimes they do block, say, a high engine kick, or back then we had wall cling, so if they did that to one of my throws, it means I could throw it back on the top of the deck and make sure I'm checking a 5 for the next attack.
Yeah, yeah. And checking a 5 is still not the best of what this does at all. It's okay. We're only running
Yeah.
2 of this, presumably because that's 6 3s at this point, which is a lot.
Yeah,
I would never run more than 6 3s unless we got a way to cheat them.
which Tiger sadly does not.
Classmate introduction, it's just an additional player body, really. It's got a bit more of a condition on that enhance, but the general idea is this is just +1 speed to all your attacks.
Yeah, literally just any card that said +1 speed with a reasonable condition on it was played, which if we're
Yeah,
giving
yeah.
everything speed, they're not going to block, so everything gets a +1. And the first attack normally being one of your throws because they're 5 disc gives it extra damage as well.
And that extra little bit of damage on a throw is very nice. Admittedly, it's not ideal because your throws are both odd numbers already, but if you get 2 classmate introductions down, it's all the better.
And it means you can get them into really awkward situations with reverse throw, where you can make it so if they block you, it still draws a card.
Heroic lineage, and minus speed to your opponent, plus damage to you. It's just nice. It does
Yeah.
commit for it, which is not ideal, but it's a good card.
Yeah, it's just a nice defensive card or a way to just get some extra damage on your speedy stuff.
Passing the torch, never going to hit that draw 2 cards. Enhanced commit, draw 1 is still not the worst thing in the world. Personally, I think that's actually kind of been power scaled out by now, because flip on draw is just so much better if you're wanting to string out a turn. But at the same time, this is an older deck. Back then, it made more sense.
Yeah, and being a 5-hander, often you just would only see one attack, and the draw 1 could mean
Yeah.
extra attacks. Just keep you going.
And then, we're only running 1 copy of Eyes of the Tiger. Back at this point in time, we hadn't realized quite how good it was, and you just wanted to run it sort of because it was the character's card. But actually, it
Yeah.
doesn't look like this. It's not a 2-diff foundation +2 low block. A +2 low block's already alright, to be fair. It's a Tiger specific 1 difficulty +1 low block foundation, which is fantastic.
Back then, we were never really playing it down as an actual card. It was just a card in for blocks.
Oh, well, that ability didn't really do anything around the time this was released.
I can't remember who, but I think there was like one deck it mattered against, but it wasn't a very good deck, so.
Yeah. Then we have Ice Gliding, needs no introduction. It's the usual commit for -2 speed and then conditionally give another -1. But on top of that, it's also commit for +1 and conditionally give another +1, which is actually kind of what we're using it for here because it affects character.
Yeah, sadly, the +1 to the following attack doesn't trigger Tiger because it comes in
Yeah.
with a +1. one.
But it is
But
still
it's
plus 1
still,
speed.
yeah, extra speed is nothing we're going to complain about.
Exactly. So this is one of the best speed gain cards of basically all time. It's a shame it's about to rotate.
Yeah, it's a card I'm very sad to see go.
And
I
speaking
play a
of
lot of Order and Water, and it's normally an auto including at least 2 copies.
flip draw 1 though, calling for backup. Literally just flip draw 1 as a first enhance.
And nothing in this deck, I believe, has a first enhance, so you can fairly easily do it first.
Yep, and the closest you've got is your Electric Jolt, which has stun 1, which kind of wants to be used first in some situations, but nothing
Yeah.
actively has a first enhance that requires it. And then Fruit of Our Labors, I have no idea what this does for you.
It's just sometimes it's hard for us to be defensively blocking when we've got extra things in progressive. So it's just a defensive card to discard 2 cards from the card pool.
Okay, I don't remember ever seeing this card used, but fair enough.
It rarely came up. It was once we had sideboards, it got sided out. It just seemed nice to have, pretty much.
Fair enough. And the zero diffs, requesting assistance was insane. If you ever hit, you gain momentum, and then you can just ready a foundation.
Yeah.
So you can just reuse any of your commit foundations. You can redraw a card with passing the torch. You can re-give speed with ice gliding, all that sort of thing. Or you can just have another card ready.
Yeah.
Requesting
it is.
assistance is, yeah, it's got that condition to meet, but it's a fantastic card.
It's very easy to meet that condition, especially in this, but any deck really. If your deck
Oh.
can't deal damage, you're probably losing anyway.
At the time, it was very hard to meet that condition on turn 2, which was when you
Yeah.
most wanted to string out for an aggro deck. But this is sort of a mid-range deck where you hit that all the time.
Back when 33 health was like an actual big amount of health.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, especially with the flipping, if they try to do one big hit, I just flip the attack and speed, and now it's very fast, doing little damage.
Yeah, Tiger has great defense in that regard. Then we have Desperate Times. After your rival draws any number of cards during the combat phase, they commit 1 foundation. Doesn't say none character even. So great punishment for Tiger, but also just a great card all round. Zero diff that taps your opponent down. More is there to say?
Yeah, it's just simple, good stuff to play, really.
Yeah, and then we have this little bit of flip hate, which just unflips your card, draws you another card on a 0. I mean, requires your opponent to flip your stuff to do anything, but if they do, free card draw.
Yeah, and with player body being so integral, same with classmate introduction, they have very big targets on their back, so it's worth running for that reason. It's not the greatest of zero diffs, but it definitely had a place in there.
Yeah, so this was your original Tiger list. It's, I think, a little bit over the minimum 50 cards from the time, but it's very much of its time. It's not a legal deck today in any format, but if you maybe bolt it up a bit, you could get it going in Spotlight.
Yeah.
Moving on, however, is your Tiger list that recently won locals. This is a very different list, and you can see, I think it's a hard 60, might even be a little bit more.
I think it's like 62, but yeah, all these different cars, board frames, and different symbols, just how the times have changed from the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I mean, what have we got in here? We've got Cowboy Bebop, My Hero, Tekken, a little bit of Yu Yu Hakusho, a little bit of Attack on Titan, a little bit of Godzilla, a little bit of Skyrim. That's not a real art. That's my edit.
Yeah.
A little bit of Bananya, a little bit of just that one time I streamed me drinking Pilk.
Yeah. And it
All
does
that
highlight
stuff.
one of the things I do love about this game as a whole is just having a bunch of IPs come together in like a single deck and just seeing all the different things we have to offer.
Yeah, that's actually quite nice, isn't it? Some people don't like it.
Mm.
I don't really understand why.
Yeah, I'm not going to build a deck with worse cards because I want diversity, but if it happens, it's always a nice surprise.
Yeah, and so one other thing I will mention is back when I got into the game, people would complain if you built a deck that didn't represent the character. Didn't care about IPs and stuff, but if you put a card that was actively wrong for your character in the deck, didn't fit their backstory, people might take issue with it. George Hammer here, though. That is absolutely Tiger's signature move.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that a few times where he literally grabs Deku kind of like that in the show, or
I
at
mean,
least
if
other
not
people.
Deku, I've seen him fight that way, certainly.
Mm.
And yeah, this is another instance of throw, but it's also a throw that can very easily become 8 damage if you're flipping stuff.
Yeah, which this deck definitely does. And
Yeah, we're
unlike
definitely flipping
before-
stuff, if only to go with this falling heel strike, which wants
Yeah.
to unflip.
Yeah, at least some very nice things you can do.
Yeah, between that and the invisible infiltration, which removes and then brings back unflipped, you have 8 cards that can unflip your stuff, which is huge.
Yeah, and we
What are
take
we
full
actually
advantage
flipping?
of that.
I mean, obviously we're flipping the player body, getting that secondary effect, filling the opponent's pool. But we've also got, let's see,
Broken
Broken
Psyche.
Psyche, change the opponent's damage to 2 and then reset that to 2 again. Draw a card on Ferocious Attacker, unflip it, draw again.
Yeah, it's
Fast
great.
Friendship, -3 speed multiple times.
Yeah, it would definitely use a lot on that, from what I remember. That and sometimes play a buddy with one of the other cards in the deck. Weightless
Struggling
means
with
that you
studies.
can do the Hagakure thing with Falling Hill Strike as well.
Yeah, because Weightless readies it while face down, so even though it commits, it's not a problem.
Yeah,
But then you've also got Skeptical readies on a flip. That doesn't actually help you much, because unflipping it doesn't do anything for you. It's
yeah,
just an extra one to trigger that Fast Friendship, right?
yeah,
And then Angelic Heart gives you plus speed, does what character wants on a flip. Ecological Fighter readies another face down foundation. Okay, yeah, we can do that
yeah. Or
6
two if you dealt
times.
damage. It's great.
And Struggling with Studies just repeats your blocks.
Yeah,
So yeah, lots of flip stuff to go with that. And that's definitely the way the deck's gone in this build. Yeah, we got a little bit less throw, but as a result, we also get to do more things with our flip. We get to stuff the opponent's pool, which kind of makes it harder for them to block our non-throws. So things and
yeah.
roundabouts there. We
The
could also, if we
only
really want, remove their foundations with Invisible Infiltration to really screw with them.
Yeah.
Nobody
You
ever
know,
does, though.
Supply Body is just a good target for it. Give your thing +1/+1, and then put something in their pool and then bring it back.
Yeah. We also got Ayami. If your rival has at least one card in their pool, draw a card. So yeah, just free card draw based on the fact that, oh look, we're clogging their pool.
Yeah.
Ah yes, Tentacle Grasp. Free diff throw. So
Yeah.
nice, because it also
Yeah, but
interacts with opponent's speed.
a card I wish was on order, but now water is just the way to go with all these flips, and I'm very glad I was able to play it.
Yeah. That's a fantastic card.
Just another copy in momentum of one of our best zero discs being Surviving the Final.
Yeah, I mean, Surviving the Final is not our best zero diff by any means, but it's our best zero diff that's survived rotation, because set 1 was all the best foundation.
Yeah, I mean, the other one, Syndicate Target, is pretty much just there as a good block.
Oh, it's a fantastic block and a nice 6 check, but that is all it's doing.
Yeah, it's like having 8 Surviving the Finals if we can get it in momentum. With being a throw and no Walkling anymore is a lot easier to do.
Yeah. Moving on though, Questioning Threat on a 3. I mean, it's your standard 3 diff. It's low stats with a little buff to one of them if you do something. Although, actually, that little buff is +3 speed, so it's not exactly very little. And it's flip a foundation, but we care about having foundations flipped, so that's not that bad. And it's
Yeah.
+3 speed, triggers character.
Yeah, so that +3 speed is making it a very nice 5 mid for 4 witch. Especially with being a 3, it's played at the end of your chain. They could have 1 or 2 things and pull from us or them blocking.
Yeah, so definitely a hard one to block. And yeah, maybe it's only doing 4 or 5 damage, but 4 or 5 damage you wouldn't have done otherwise. And a card draw, so.
Yeah, and if they ever are in deadlock, it keeps you going because +5 to your next check.
True. People don't go into deadlock all that often, but it's something.
Yeah, it's like they see that card and they definitely think about not going in if they might have otherwise.
Yeah. Then we have Referee Jury, fairly straightforward. Change damage to 4. Maybe swap it to speed and block if you want, but probably not. Because if it deals
No.
damage, you draw a card. And then you just get to commit one of their foundations. It's a good
Yeah.
card. It does take space, but at the same time, we're constantly drawing, so we're not really a 5-hander, so I don't know how much of a problem that actually is.
Yeah, and with the Refreshing Slice in this build, to commit one of theirs is nice because that turns Refreshing Slice online to turn that into potentially commit 2.
Yeah, Refreshing Slice used to be one of the best uses for momentum, and I just don't see it anymore.
Which is partly because of one of the cards in this deck as well, being
Yeah, the other one, vertical maneuvering equipment. Running this is a 4 of, I don't think you ever really want to see more than one of this, but you really want to see one of this because it's just every attack that hits turns into a free block.
Mm,
It is so good, and then on offense, it also triggers your character with that +3 speed.
yeah.
And it sounds like you're losing momentum for it, but you're actually not, because that +3 speed guarantees that your attack goes through. You get the momentum right back.
It can also be turned into hyper offense as well because of Tiger with the flipping attack and speed. With say,
Yeah, it can also do
Jammer.
+3 damage.
You just give it 3 damage, and then you can commit it then after that to give it +5 damage essentially. So that's 13 damage.
Oh yeah, because it gives +2 as well. Yeah. That's 7 damage through block. Your speed doesn't even matter. Vertical maneuvering equipment is a crazy card, and I always forget it has that commit because you always want it ready, except when it kills. And it does just kill out of nowhere because you forget about that commit.
Yeah.
Finally Awake, fantastic card. Can't believe it came back. I was running this in my Tsuyu deck before my hero actually released when I thought we'd have normal standard. Finally Awake does not do a vast amount. It's commit for +1/+1, or I guess +1/+2 in this, with a restriction. The important part here is to commit any foundation, including your face downs. So it lets you
Yeah.
reuse the cards you've flipped for even more value.
Yeah. And was refreshing place as well. So there's even a face-up one that we want
Yeah,
committed as well.
yeah, that's
Normally, you want to
nasty.
commit it
Refreshing
for
Slice didn't exist when this card was a card that you basically auto-included in certain characters.
yeah, so
So the fact that you've got a card that makes it even better is just what?
yeah, it's just great in the deck.
Yeah,
The only reason it's at 2 is because there just wasn't space for more without making the deck size bigger, which
yeah.
being a 5-hander, you've got to be extra careful about.
Yeah, yeah, and as a 2 diff, you got other things taking that space.
Yeah, so I normally with Tiger it was 4 to 5 2 diff, so I thought 2 offensive, 2 defensive were the right way to go with the 2 broken
Yeah, we've
psyche.
got 8 2 diffs. Actually, wait a minute. You've got 10 if you count your assets.
Well, for foundations, yeah, it's normally
Yeah,
about
but
10,
you
but
do
it's
count your
okay to
assets
play
because you
it.
want to play those turn 1 as well.
Yeah, 10 is more than enough.
Anyway, Eyes of the
Yeah.
Tiger, I mean, it's back again. It's gone up to 2 here. You can see it was starting to become more useful at this time. So
Yeah.
this was for locals, so I guess you weren't seeing a lot of City Rampage. But the fact that this stops
No.
City Rampage is huge.
This deck does have a sideboard included, and the other 2 copies are in there. So it was
Right.
definitely a conscious effort of 2 in the main for just in case we do face one of the biggest boogeymen of the format, with a good block. And then if it is one of those, we can put 2 more in.
Fair, fair. And then I think we've loaded everything else, so I think we can move on to the next one. But this was a solid list, and it's no surprise to me that it won locals. If anything, it's just a surprise to me that it took so goddamn long.
Yeah. He rotates probably by the time this video comes out.
Well, this is our teams list. I'm hoping it'll go out really soon before the end of the month, but we shall see.
Yeah.
Sorry, no,
But
this
yeah.
isn't our teams list. This is our teams list, as you can tell
Yeah.
by the Nationals playmat.
Mm.
This is the
It's still
version that itself ran City Rampage.
Yeah, I figured out one of the best things he could do was kind of be in Godzilla Light.
Yeah, so the thing about City Rampage, and more importantly about Eyes of the Tiger with it, is that you get to choose when to use this. So you can use this on your opponent's turn and not have to deal with turning off your City Rampage. Or you can use it on your turn when you don't get it to turn off any abilities that your opponent might have that stop what you're doing.
Yeah.
And yeah, to go along with that, we do have some more Godzilla attacks. We've got Smashing Stomp, which just gives you next check +1, so continues your turn. And draws an
Yeah.
extra card if it deals damage, which is nice, but not the reason it's in here.
Yeah. And with EX3, after the first turn, it becomes pretty speedy as well. So,
If you're not spending
uh,
all your momentum on that vertical maneuvering equipment,
yeah. Which, interestingly, on itself is the same.
true, true.
If you're using one momentum, that is, but
Yeah,
you're probably never really using +6 speed in Tiger. It's a bit of overkill, unless you're planning to turn that into damage.
curious that we've lost Refreshing Slice here, but I actually know why. We'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
Next Godzilla one is Throw, obviously. If it deals 7 or more damage, your rival destroys a foundation. We don't get it freely, like in Godzilla himself, but we get +1/+1 from City Rampage, and then any additional
Yes.
+1 buffs it to 7. So anything that triggers the character, it's not that hard.
Which Fire Body, the thing you still want to always be having down,
Yep.
just makes it there.
And we've still got 3-player bodies, though we've cut it down to 3 to have less 3 diffs, so that we can get away with History's Greatest Monster, which readies when you play a 5 or greater.
Yeah.
Note that that counts even when you block with them. So even if you're blocking on a +1 with City Rampage, you can still ready this.
Yeah, which it did come up because all the attacks in this are 5, so if you had to hold one of those for blocks, the card next to it, Chicken Kick, is still a 1 low block, which is really nice.
Yep. So you do ideally want this in your momentum for +1 damage to everything.
Yeah, which again, if you had that in momentum, Destructor Slam with City Rampage is at that 7.
Yep. And, you know, it goes to momentum normally, and it gets a lot of speed bonuses from itself, because every time the rival passes an enhance, and you can just keep doing enhances during it. Tiger has 2 on face if he needs, there's stun 1
Yeah.
here, and then you've got your foundations, so you can definitely out-enhance them.
There has been times with this, with the flipping, to get it to the 7 damage with the 2 pluses to the...
Yeah, you just flip to put it to 6 speed or whatever, and then you still buff damage back up to 5, I've seen.
Yeah,
But, if you want that +1 damage even sooner, you can always add it with Piercing Thorn Lances, which just adds any of your lows to your momentum. That's your Smashing
It's
Stomp or that Chicken Kick.
yeah.
Unfortunately, though, not our next one, this Levi's Rampage. Levi's Rampage is not a turn 2 card. This is very much, if we failed to kill turn 2, we've gained a lot of momentum from everything we're doing. And on top of that, we've got the City Rampage to guarantee we can't fail the check. And we have Gold Tips Imperial. So anytime our attack turn fails, we just end turn gain extra momentum anyway. And so
Yeah,
we
it's
can
like
really fuel that.
yeah, it's such a nice card. It would
Personally,
get more copies, but there just wasn't space.
yeah, that's what I was going to
One.
say. More copies of Gold Tips Imperial would be great. I ran a lot of those in my Rock Lock and just always had spare momentum. I was up at 12 some games.
Yeah, it's like I wanted more, but that's why there's some other cards where they're odd ratio, partly because of teams, but even in the standard list, they were
Yeah.
things like Levi Rampage at 3 just
And
for
personally,
space reasons.
I would have considered 2 Levi's Rampage just because you don't want to see it early. But yeah,
Mm.
3's all right.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like in teams with that where they saw me being quite slow, and then oh, I had 4 momentum. Here's 4
Here's,
attacks for
yeah,
1 Levi's Rampage.
Levi's Rampage with a City Rampage and all your character buffs just coming in for something like 7 damage every time. Borderline unblockable. And even if they could block it, they weren't blocking all 4.
Yeah, and because of all the draws, you sometimes do draw into a second Levi's Rampage, which
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes you have to commit one, but it's
Yeah, but I
just
mean, you
stupidly
commit
strong.
one, and then you just ready it again because it's history's greatest monster.
Yeah, it's just a great card.
It's freaking stupid sometimes.
Yeah.
And this is before we've even done the combo that forces it to not be able to leave pool.
Mhm.
But moving on, Vast Hybrid Chimera Kraken. You know why this is in here, right?
Yeah.
This is in
Mimic.
here specifically because it commits a rival asset. It turns off a whole load of problem cards, including their own vertical maneuvering equipment.
Yeah.
Because vertical maneuvering equipment is such a big part of the meta, and basically
Yeah.
should be in every deck. I'd say
It's
every
like
deck on symbol, but it's infinity, so it's effectively on every symbol, even though it has no symbols.
yeah, and it's like I probably would have played more Vast Hybrid Chimera Kraken, but it's expensive, and at the time I could only find 2 in our local group.
Yeah, well, I mean, you don't want to be playing it multiple times in a turn anyway, really.
Yeah, and it is nice to have that one high attack just because they just don't think you're running any. They get rid of their high box, and then this comes down.
Yeah, if anything, I'd run more backed into a corner. You're running at a foundation deficit because you're a 5-hander, and you're a slow character, so you just slow your opponent down to match you.
Yeah.
But if you hit multiples of that in a turn, you can just freeze your opponent out completely. It is an absolutely stupid card being able to freeze 10 in a turn.
Yeah, I have had it as well with just the one copy being played where backed into a corner was my second attack, and to block the first, they committed 5.
Yeah,
So then all those foundations just frozen straight away.
yeah.
It's so nice to do.
It's so friggin' dumb.
Yeah, it's
What other
surprising
new
how well
foundations
this
do we
deck
have?
did in teams though, given I think I won a single game during the actual event.
Yeah, well, part of it was giving you the right matchups. I took the
Yeah.
worst, and then everybody else was sort of sorted out pretty well, actually.
Yeah, and because Tiger being who he is, very much an old man in a very fast new meta, people just disregarded him as a free win, and it's what he does if you
And he wasn't.
underestimate him, and then he Levi rampages you.
Yeah, exactly. And that was very much what one of the games was. I mentioned in overview of teams. We saw the game state. It was clearly you losing. And they turned to me like 2 minutes later after a bit of a chat going, is that a Levi's Rampage at 4 momentum? Because, yeah,
so-
you get written off and then it just comes out of nowhere and obliterates people.
yeah, and they can't block all of them, but anyone they don't block just gives me more cards to draw into more attacks. It's just
Yeah.
perfect. It's what Slashing Whirlwind did in the deck, but just so much better.
Yeah, I think the only new card here is Return of the Kings, foundation-wise, certainly on the first row.
Yeah.
It's basically
mean-
minus speed, but not minus speed. Doesn't interact with the deck very well, but I guess it's just a nice defensive card.
Yeah, I just needed more defensive cards.
Yeah,
And it was a low block.
so
if you
personally, I feel
do-
like Run Idiot with its healing, which is extra good in a high health character.
Yeah. I
Probably
did
the better
often
card.
prefer Run Idiot.
I
In
can
the
see why the +2 low block might be better than the +3 high, but that's the only real thing that Return of the Kings has over it.
yeah, Return of the King, if you're willing to get rid of that one momentum, can build itself during their turn, which is
Yeah,
kind of
but
nice.
momentum's a premium here. We already
Yeah.
had to cut Refreshing Slice for it,
Yeah.
so I don't think that's optimal at all.
It never happened, but it is an option if need be.
Yeah. And then that's the deck. That is your winning team's deck. Well, your third place team's deck anyway. Got us into tops.
Yeah, which, given that it was more or just the same amount of competitiveness that was the main event, is amazing. Just like
Yeah.
the qualifier, the first deck you saw, it probably really shouldn't have done as well as it did, but.
But I mean, this was your pet deck for the longest time. People didn't take it seriously, but it was actually well made.
Yeah, it's kind of been known in the UK community that I play Tiger.
Yeah.
So it'll be sad partly for him to go for that reason, but hey, it'll always be there if I ever take a venture into retro.
Yeah. And speaking of not even retro, really, this is my Tiger list. This list was made as a joke initially because I saw Eyes of the Tiger and went, huh, weird that they call it Eyes of the Tiger and not Eye of the Tiger. What if I just put in the old promo card Eye of the Tiger alongside it? And then I looked at the promo card Eye of the Tiger and went, wait a minute, this is insane. This is a 2/4 attack. It's not particularly great, right? And it's a
Yeah.
1 check, which is terrible and will screw you up. But it's also just randomly a 0 diff. What the hell,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And it has only one ability, which is garbage. It's Enhanced Commit 1 Foundation. This attack gets either +1 speed or +1 damage. But
Yeah,
consider this.
technically makes it better.
Tiger
It's
makes it
1/1.
+2/+2, but it's worse than that. Because at this point in Standard, the card Gotcha
Yeah.
was legal. And so I put Gotcha in with all these old cards for the joke deck. Gotcha says when this is committed during the Enhanced step, +1 or -1 speed. That's 2 instances of +1 speed, which instantly triggers Tiger twice. So this goes from being a 2/4 to being a 4/6. So you're playing on a 0 diff to extend your turn.
Yeah, and the gotcha combo in Tiger before the rotation of the first set was something I was doing with Finally Awake.
Yeah,
Where
yeah,
I was
but
running 4 of that for gotcha. So,
I feel like Eye of the Tiger just takes that to the next level.
oh yeah, for sure. But for some of that was a legal deck. It's
Yeah.
very much a nice combo that we had for
Yeah.
not very long, but we did do a not so well teamed event with.
Yeah, and to be clear though, this is not a legal deck in any format. It was based on the Standard at the time, with just some of the cards swapped out for cards that thematically fit Tiger. They were either Tiger cards or Cat cards or maybe Feline cards, but I don't think Feline Spike was on symbol.
It's
So-
the kind of deck I would definitely have taken to local if this was something I could actually play, being the
Yeah, it's a
Tiger
hell of a
deck.
meme, but actually getting hold of the cards is also a nightmare.
Yeah, you know,
But this
I
isn't
would
even
never
legal in
patched up-
Legacy, because Legacy
What?
has a 60 card limit, and this is a 50 card deck,
Okay.
because 50 cards was the standard at the time. So this is
Yeah.
very much just a fun, jokey deck. You could always make it bigger if you wanted, but there aren't other attacks that fit the theme.
Yeah, which slightly ruined it.
Yeah,
But
so
if this was a legal thing in any capacity, I probably would try it out. Just because it would be the Tiger deck.
yeah, exactly. The
I
attacks we
played
have
worse
are
meme decks.
Cat Punch, which is draw if it hits, draw if it doesn't, and that's basically all it's got going on. But it does have another commit 1 foundation for +2 speed, so we can do the gotcha trick with that as well, even if it is best saved for Eye of the Tiger.
Yeah.
Then Cat Spike is just Missouri Smash, but with the word cat in front of it. I mean, actually, genuinely, that's what it is. Whip
Yeah.
Cat is probably the best one here. If you have at least 1 momentum, ready your foundation's not been ready. So that's your requesting assistance, but on an attack. And then added to that, if you have 2 or more momentum, you get a 3rd momentum. And then if you have 3 momentum, which you do now, +5 damage. So it's just if you have 2 momentum, you only have to spend it, ready your foundation, and it's a 4/8 before you
can see
even do
why
Tiger abilities.
A card like that, especially on Evil, is not being reprinted.
Yeah, though this is a water deck, so we're not using it on Evil.
Yeah.
Final
Also, I
one.
think any deck on Symbol would probably play Flip Cat.
Pretty much. Final one is Yishan's Tiger Claw. Again, has commit 1 foundation for its effect, which says it goes to momentum face up. And then while in momentum face up, you get stun 1 on every attack.
Yeah,
It's a high cost to get it there, but if you do, it definitely extends your usefulness in the long game.
yeah, and I mean, there's certain decks like my Old Dog New Trick Sheepman where a big part of the gimmick of the deck was just Air Force giving everything stun 1.
Yeah, so this is similar to that in that regard. However, I do want to mention you don't want to go long with this deck because Eye of the Tiger exists, and the longer the game goes, the more likely you are to check that 1.
Yeah.
That 1 will mess you up.
I hate 2s. I could never imagine playing a 1. You are
Likewise,
a braver player than me.
We lost player body specifically because we wanted to play around that 1. We've only got 1 2 diff, and it's 4 copies of Classmate Introduction.
Which, if you squint, it's kind of player body.
Yeah, exactly. But we've also upped 4 copies of Fancy Feast because we have so much more cat in the deck, it's actually worth running now.
Yeah.
There is another deck I run this in, but we'll talk about that later. That's one of my upcoming ones that I'm really hoping to show off, even though the character's been errated since.
Yeah. But I do like seeing this just Mimi Tiger because I'm a My Hero starting player. I didn't know half of those cards existed. Most of the attacks didn't exist in general.
Yeah. I mean, Flip Cat and Cat Spike are the only ones that were in standard, even. Yishan's Tiger Claw and Eye of the Tiger were well gone by the time Jasko got hold of the game.
I was like, I think I saw Cat Flip before I started playing the game in the stream we did a while back, where you just showed me cards and I tried to guess how good they were.
Quite possibly. I would like to edit that up and get that out there at some point, but it's just been difficult, you know?
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
hard to cut down all the good stuff to make a less than an hour video.
Yeah,
Speaking of which, we should probably end this one now.
yeah,
We've
but
said
I'm
everything we
glad
needed to about 4 different versions of Tiger, all of them varying degrees of success, apart from this one, which was just a gimmicky fun one for stream.
I'm glad he was finally able to win that low because it very much felt like a curse.
Yeah, and Teams was, nobody saw that coming, but that was great.
I mean, I didn't. I was like, we may win a game or two, and I would have been happy.
Thanks for going through this with me, and thanks for joining me, everyone. I'll catch you next time with, hopefully, Jonah's deck.
See ya.
Bye.